If you could only play one game for the rest of your life, which game would you choose? Perhaps you would choose a game which you could learn to speedrun and always strive for a faster time like in Super Mario Bros. Or a game with endless and ever increasing in difficulty levels to beat like Geometry Dash. Perhaps you would choose a game like Rocket League with a near infinite skill ceiling as you challenge other players to rise to the top of a leaderboard, or a game like Realm of the Mad God where it would take all your free time to gather every item the game has to offer as you take down the same bosses over and over again alongside everyone else. If you haven't picked it up already, the thing that all of these have in common is the ongoing goals for the player to achieve. Goals given to the player by, or motivation to complete these goals through the vast online community of other gamers to play with and talk to. What if people stopped caring about you getting your next personal best or even world record time? Or if no more levels were uploaded to the Geometry Dash servers as the demon list becomes frozen in time, a memory of what it once was? What if there was no one to play against when searching for a match in Rocket League, or if no other players logged on to help you clear the dungeons in Realm of the Mad God? I'm not saying that this will happen anytime soon, nor am I saying that these are bad games. I just want to point out that it requires a great game to start playing it, but it also takes a great community to play it forever. Minecraft has the potential to be different. It's more than a game which you pick up, play, then put down when you finish. It's an empty book, waiting for its story to be written, a canvas expecting to be filled with the player's art, a digitalized playground to have as much fun as you wish in. There is so much to do, so much to learn. There is always something new to try. Too good at combat that nothing can take you down? Try your hand at building to fill your world with your designs. Become proficient at that too? Take a crack at redstone to bring your world to life through farms or adding fancy contraptions to your buildings. There is nothing telling you what to do, but there's also nothing telling you what not to do. It all comes down to you. Take a game like this and add a community, YouTube videos to watch, Discords to chat about the game in, servers to play on with and friends to play with, and you start to realize why Minecraft is one of the biggest games of all time. Mojang have stated they want the game to last for 100 years. That's a big ask and something I would like them to succeed in. They are on their way there, but it's not there yet. Minecraft suffers from a few but important issues that are actively hurting its player base that, as far as I can tell, have not been meaningfully addressed. For most of these videos, I have been trying to address the big one: how do you keep players playing? For the most part, this graph does wonders. By allowing for diminishing returns, it creates a space where there's almost always a way to get stronger, but it is now up to the player to decide how far they go. It's not something they can one and done and never have to interact with again. But it goes further than that. If given the opportunity, players will always optimize the fun out of a game. By trying to design mechanics such that even the most optimized way to play is still fun, it will severely limit the dull moments a player can have, like replacing a lectern over and over again to get the enchanted book that they wish. But these fixes are for your existing player base. How do you grow that and get new people to play your game? Just because kids play Minecraft does not mean that Minecraft is a kid's game, so stop marketing it as such. The average Minecrafter is 24 years old. I understand that kids may be a large source of income as they pay for cosmetics on their parents' bank accounts, but this is not sustainable. If you want your game to last for a long time, you need players to play your game for a long time. So when these kids start to grow up and look at the marketing of the game, which is targeted at children, they will turn away from Minecraft as they feel the game is no longer for them, as they can no longer look at any sort of official content without dying of pure and overwhelming cringe. Minecraft has built up a loyal and mature fan base since its initial creation. Many who would be willing to throw some money into the game if they felt it worthwhile, like if Realms was a viable option for multiplayer, as opposed to spending their money on literally any other third-party hosting platform just to play with their friends. Don't waste that goodwill on kids who look at anything that grabs their attention for a total of negative 10 seconds before moving on to whatever algorithm-induced media can do that for them. I do not think it wise to recycle the player base every few years if you want a game to have any form of longevity. So if older players and returning players feel welcomed, and you can market the game appropriately to bring new players in, how do these new players actually get into Minecraft and immerse themselves as they sink hours into learning the mechanics of their new favourite game? My name is Greenjab, and this is the finale to the How I Fixed Survival Minecraft trilogy. Minecraft is a game about discovery. You are dropped into a world with no clue what to do and how to do it. By playing around, you figure out the basics, how to break and place blocks, how to craft and smelt better gear, how to attack and stop yourself from being attacked. As you progress further, you figure out the more interesting mechanics, like how touching lava sets you on fire, but touching water puts you out, how some blocks are affected by gravity, and how some blocks can be activated by something else. The player feels a sense of discovery after tinkering around with something new and figuring out how it works. But this can only happen when they see the cause and effect together. Separate that, and the player will have a hard time learning how all Minecraft's web of mechanics fit together. The player doesn't want to be handheld through every step, which is why it's good there is no proper tutorial, but the player also requires some direction in where to look next, hints at what they are yet to learn, rather than aimlessly poking around within the game hoping to find something new. I remember a time when we had to memorize every single crafting recipe, when we had screenshots of all the block IDs as our desktop backgrounds, and generally had a tough time trying to figure out the game. Minecraft has come a long way since then in terms of teaching the player its mechanics since its humble beginnings. For example, the Igloo, which teaches players how to cure zombie villagers. But Minecraft is still a long way off from comprehensively teaching all of its mechanics internally in a way that doesn't require the player to seek information from elsewhere to figure out how to do things. Minecraft still suffers from a very classic case of wiki game. The lack of in-game help, which is a large factor in how Minecraft blew up, as players are required to engage in the community to make progress. But I think the game is at a point where it should at least try to teach a bit of everything and leave the more complex parts to the books, official and unofficial, YouTube videos, communities, and the wiki for those who want to take their mastery of the game to the next level. As every world is randomly generated, and everyone plays the game in their own way, there is no way to hand-tailor the world to teach the player, so different methods must be put in place. One of the best ways to spark interest in complicated areas is through the use of visual storytelling, like with the recent ruined portals to hint at another whole dimension to explore. Before these were added, the game never hinted at how to build a portal, so using the game alone, it was almost impossible for the player to ever even make it to the Nether. So any hint is better than no hint. But when using in-world structures like this, it must be clear as day what is just decorative and what has function, and currently the portals fail ever so slightly in this regard. You see, the ruined portals contain crying obsidian, which cannot be part of the portal, which could lead players to falsely attempt to create the portal with crying obsidian and fail, and think this whole thing has been one big nothing burger. I'm happy for crying obsidian to be on the nether side once they have figured it out, but otherwise I want to limit the possible stumbling blocks for new players just trying to learn the game. Another almost perfect example is the wither painting. I love stuff like this and wish there were more like it in the game. My only gripe is how the only way to find this is via a painting that the player has to craft and hope they place it in a spot that makes 2x2 paintings. Perhaps this specific painting could generate in strongholds to remind the ancient builders what they were trying to run away from, but that's just a theory, a game theory. These have done well to teach the multi-block constructions of the Wither and Nether portal, but what about the rest? The setup to build an iron golem could be hinted at by having an iron ingot layout within a chest situated next to the iron golem cage at a pillager outpost, perhaps showing that their intent of studying the golem. Like the ruined portal, unfinished conduit structures could rarely generate in the middle of ocean ruins, a sign that the inhabitants of old tried to save their town but were not able to do so in time, before they got turned into drowned. The library in the stronghold could be tweaked to hint at how bookshelves power up at the enchanting table, and for the beacon, similar to other fake structures made out of wool in woodland mansions, perhaps also have a room with a wool pyramid representing one of the beacon blocks and a block of glass on top for where the beacon should go, as if the Illagers were trying to create this majestic source of power but lacked the real materials or the intellect to appropriately do so. The other main approach Minecraft uses to guide the players through some of its less intuitive parts is through the use of its UI elements. The crafting book is probably one of the best examples of this, showing recipes for the items the player has yet to interact with so the player can quickly learn about new items to be able to experiment with later. My only question is, why has it not been added to the brewing stand yet? I cannot say the same about advancements though. Second only to trying to change your GUI scale, this is perhaps the most poorly designed user interface I have seen in Minecraft. Seriously, how did this get through quality assurance testing? Only the overworld and end sections look decent, the rest are just an unnavigatable wall of icons. Jumping back to before 1.12, I can say that without a doubt, the original achievement tree was far superior, and that's not the nostalgia speaking. Having all your achievements in one place rather than split into separate categories, you got to watch your set of achievements grow over time in this uniquely Minecraft style of a web of twisting and unstructured lines, symbolizing how this is more than a game with a simple set of linear progression, but a game where there are multiple paths for the player to take and follow to choose from in this adventure sandbox. Although functionally extremely similar, Geometry Dash's gauntlets and map packs are both sets of levels that once beaten you get a small reward. One feels like a game, the other feels like a job. Achievements are like the gauntlets, but advancements are like map packs. It's evolving, just backwards. Now for the advancements themselves, they used to be really good. Almost all were either pushing the player forward or a difficult challenge of sorts indicated by a special border. There could have been a few more here and there to help fill the gaps between progression, but that's not my biggest problem with them right now. In the more recent updates, on top of removing a lot of the useful achievements to guide the player, as well as a lot of fun and iconic achievements to get, despite the new name, a lot of the new advancements that have been added don't advance the player forward, nor are they a difficult or fun challenge to overcome, but meaningless tasks given to the player in a vain attempt to get them to interact with the new features. I can understand why you might want to get players to look at the cool new stuff you added, but this feels nothing but shallow and lazy. Can someone please tell me why there are 3 advancements dedicated to the same already intuitive mechanic, and yet none to the less intuitive ones, like using fireworks with an elytra? Why does the sniffer get not 1, but 2 hidden advancements that both only take a single right click? This doesn't even serve the purpose of teaching the player about the new mob since it's hidden. Hidden advancements should be saved only for the really difficult advancements like How Did We Get Here that tryhard players can boast about getting, but also so that casual completionists won't feel guilty about skipping them. All this is doing is diminishing the worth of the entire advancement system to the point where I don't even want to interact with it. It is now just resorted to being a button on the menu that is only ever accidentally clicked on before I go, oh yeah, this exists. No thanks. This needs to be fixed. It is my mission should I choose to accept it. And while I do so, I may as well throw in a few of my own achievements to help teach the modified mechanics while also providing an appropriate level challenge to go alongside with it. Now, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I know how the comparator works, and no, it's not black magic. A few years ago, Mojang had a segment in Minecraft Live where they brought in a bunch of Psycraft members to talk about how redstone farms and automation can enrich your survival experience. So it is definitely recognized that redstone can be a main part of your survival world, bringing forth many new gameplay opportunities that wouldn't have otherwise been possible. However, unless you are a part of multiple technical discords, have watched countless YouTube tutorials, and invested too many hours into tinkering with the game's mechanics until you know them better than the math homework you should have been working on, it can be incredibly difficult to get to a position where you feel confident in your abilities to not be scared off by how complex some of this machinery may look. The depth and complexity of redstone and its hidden intricacies will be practically impossible to teach about to these communities, and I don't think Minecraft should try to teach them anyway. But why would anyone feel a need to grow their understanding if they don't feel the game that teaches them even the basics? The mechanics should be self-explanatory to the point players can self-teach themselves how it works without needing to look up some insert tutorial here, or blatantly follow Lightmatic here and miss out on all the fun of playing with redstone. Let me give an example to demonstrate my point. Did you know the hopper can be powered, which when doing so disables the hopper from pulling and pushing items? Well, I wouldn't blame you for not knowing this, as there is no visual feedback as to whether a hopper is locked or not. So the only way to know this is if to have been told it by someone else, or be very lucky when messing around. You might be able to work out how to use a hopper for basic item collection and transportation, but anything more complex like item sorting will forever be out of reach. Sure, you could find a tutorial to build one, but without an understanding of how it works, what hope do you have to fix it if something goes wrong, or be able to build off it and do your own things with it? Coming back to the comparator, before you ask, who are you who are so wise in the ways of science, I'm going to show you that it's actually quite simple really, but it only makes sense when you have a pretty solid grasp on how signal strength works. If I were to show you this, what do you think the comparator is doing? It's not that obvious, right? But if I turn on my resource pack, which is built off Exumavoid's vanilla tweaks, it becomes much clearer to see, as you can see the values of the 10 in the back, which does something with a value of 7 in the side, to produce an output of 3. I'm sure you can work out the rest from there. Increasing the visual fidelity of all redstone machinery so that you don't need to rely on the debug menu to see the note block note if a piston is sticky or not, and showing when droppers and observers are powered will encourage tinkering with different circuits, as feedback of what each thing does and if it is working correctly will be far more upfront and clear, making it more intuitive. There are some redstone mechanics which don't make as much sense from an intuitive sense, like quasi-connectivity, but removing something like this would be far more detrimental to redstone in the long run, as its use cases far outweigh the time it takes to learn it. But just making each individual component clearer is not enough to get new players interested in redstone. They need to see how it can be useful. They need to see examples. The jungle temple was so close to being a good example. An extremely simple puzzle using basic redstone components, creating a small hidden trapdoor leading to a bit of treasure? Fantastic. But that's not what the player sees. All they see is 3 things on a wall. If they figure out they can interact with the levers, they might hear some sounds but nothing to indicate any form of success. And if they did get it right, there is a good chance they will miss the opening they made and thus miss out on the treasure anyway. If the levers were lowered and in their place iron bars were put, players would be able to see that there is something here to investigate. Starting with one lever down would show that they can be interacted with, and as the redstone is visible, each lever interaction will have a tangible result, which will make clearer when they have opened the trapdoor and thus can access the treasure, or in the true Minecraft fashion, just break your way in anyway. However, I cannot say the same for the ancient city. I like that you wanted a space in the late game to try teach some redstone stuff, but this redstone is abhorrent. It makes redstone seem even more complicated than it actually is, without teaching anything substantial, turning away players who might have wanted to learn something. The stuff on the sides are fine, albeit forced and could do with some work, but the main room's second variant is an abomination against redstone kind. This is perhaps the most complicated T flip-flop I have ever seen, and that's not a good thing. And the worst part? It doesn't even generate properly. It is placed into the world broken, which will cause even more confusion. I am going to create my own version of this building and place it into the mod. And for those who don't know redstone, I would encourage you to try it and see if you can learn anything from it. While I'm at the ancient city, in conjunction with all the enchanting changes, I may as well give Skulk another use by using it to craft the infamous bottle o' enchanting, as well as give some other useful and fitting additions to echo shards to make them more desirable, especially for hardcore. And finally, do you want to hear the definition of a missed opportunity? Trial chambers plus redstone. Sure, there is the odd trap, but it's only really tripwires which were already in the jungle temple or buttons for the breeze to activate. The entrance isn't even an entrance, it's a wall. Even a simple 3x3 or etho door would do wonders here, and then just throw other bits and pieces that could showcase redstone's ability beyond what is currently shown. Please. Apart from the obvious copper bulb change, the other redstone component I will like to add to is the calibrated skulk sensor. Almost all vibration values that you can reliably create with redstone also have the same value as other redstone components, which renders using skulk sensors within redstone contraptions kinda pointless. Much like how you can use an amethyst block to resonate the vibration to another sensor, what if this is extended to all redstone, such that just powering an amethyst block were to create an artificial vibration of that signal strength, so that you could reliably use values such as 14 or 15, which would have very little interference with other redstone components, allowing for more opportunities for them to be used as opposed to being downgraded to merely just a gimmick. Many of us are in agreement that the 1.16 Nether update was the best update to have ever been released. Apart from possibly making ancient debris generate more commonly within basalt deltas when exposed to lava, or adding some other way to make gathering it slightly more interesting, there is a surplus of other reasons as to why it stands out as being near perfect. But one that I want to draw your attention to is atmosphere. Despite the Nether now only having 5 biomes, because of how distinct they are, from the terrain, color palette, skybox, music, sound and particles, the Nether can feel more diverse and immersive than the overworld, which has over 50 biomes. Sure, the Nether is supposed to be otherworldly, while the overworld is a reflection of our realistic world. It doesn't mean the biomes have to all feel so similar and surface level. Something I think we all hoped for in 1.19, the Wild update, was to get a little update to some of these biomes. Perhaps getting the promised desert biome overhaul, or throwing some ambience here and there. But I think I can speak for a lot of us who still die a little inside whenever we remember what could have been. Even if added as a particle that you cannot interact with, specifically with frogs, a simple particle system can bring so much life to an area that goes beyond just blocks and entities. Let me show you. There was a little discussion in the Discord around the idea for a late game opt-in difficulty surrounding a new ominous biome, where the local difficulty would be much higher for more mobs to spawn with better armor and weapons, and could be a way to make the super enchanted green glint gear somewhat renewable. Before we even go into adding mobs, I'm going to turn off my shaders, no illusions this time, use a respawn pack to make the foliage grey, give myself blindness, and set the biome to basalt deltas to give some particles and sound effects. And if we do some custom generation and other atmospheric changes, then you get what a good friend of mine Sebrin designed and calls the Abyss. I'm not saying we need to add particles everywhere, as then it would lessen the effect of those that currently do, but just a little more uniqueness to contrast against each other would greatly enhance the world these biomes exist in. It's not something you can mathematically work out, it's just the vibe of the thing that matters. And it's partly why people love the new Cherry Grove biome. Some biomes have some exclusive mobs like the Husk, Stray and Bugged, but even a slight texture change like Nillatwig's Golden Savannas, then filling it with llamas like in Bedrock Edition would be an effective change. No biome should be quote-unquote mostly indistinguishable, meaning there is absolutely no terrain difference between two biomes. But all of this is only taking place on the surface of the world. Digging under the biome tinted grass and different tree type, almost no matter what biome you are in, the underground all feels the same. Don't get me wrong, I love what has been done to the underground in the recent updates, from water-filled caves in 1.13, the blocks in 1.17, all new cave generation in 18, and the deep dark in 19. The entire mining experience has become far greater than it ever used to be. My biggest gripe with it all is the lack of biome diversity. In all of these updates, we only got a total of 3 dedicated underground biomes, and only 2 of them feel basically perfect. I wouldn't be so upset about the simplicity of the dripstone caves if there were just more biome varieties in a similar style, not needing to add a tremendous amount of new blocks, but perhaps akin to swapping all the stone and diorite, creating these white wall caves wherever you go, or fillets with their own unique cave types like chasms. Most importantly though, while underground, there is absolutely no way of knowing what biome is on the surface. This wouldn't be a problem on its own, but when you have underground generation that relies on what the surface biome is, unless you're using F3 to make sure you stay within your preferred biome, then you can get lost pretty easily. If you haven't worked it out already, I'm talking about emerald ore. Seriously, where did the villagers get all their emeralds? I struggled to get 2 ores before I realised I exited the extreme holes biome 5 minutes ago. Despite being one of the more common metals, it is the rarest ore, to the point where it's only worth their silk touch decorational value. If you're going to lock an ore behind a biome, then that's where the vein should be large and everywhere else has veins of one. Similarly, ancient cities most commonly generate under mountainous terrain. But who am I to know whether I'm under a mountain or not unless I'm either on the surface or already in an ancient city? I want to take the example of gold generating more commonly in the mesa biome and give other ores their own space to be mined more efficiently to give reasons to mining within particular biomes. But I am hesitant to do so unless you can tell me which biome you are in without needing to go back up to the surface every 5 minutes. Beyond adding more biome-specific music and sounds, which would be nice, to show that you are still in a Badlands biome where gold is most common, rather than terracotta only generating a few blocks beneath the surface, it could gradually turn to stone as you descend, but still be ever present to remind you of what is above. Similarly, deserts could get the same treatment but with sandstone to show where a higher amount of lapis lazuli is. Coal could be under jungle and swamp biomes where you find vines growing within the caves, and iron could be more common under old growth biomes where you'd also have some mossy cobblestone around you. Supposedly, infested blocks generate under mountain biomes where the emeralds are. However, I just learnt about this for this video, as I basically always have a silk touch pickaxe by this point, which removed the silverfish. So let's make the silverfish spawn anyway, and why not add the cave spider to the underground mountains to add some spicy danger, and on the flip side, the biome that doesn't spawn hostile mobs, shown via underground giant mushrooms, could have redstone ore in abundance to encourage testing redstone there in safety. Currently the only time you can get a good guess at what biome is above you unless you have a map, is when you find yourself in a water-filled cave, which I will fill with more copper. Sure, dripstone caves also have more copper, but who doesn't like more copper? Especially when this could explain where the drowned get all of theirs from. Speaking of, now that the world is twice as deep, why don't we make the oceans twice as deep to go with it, bringing underwater structures like ocean monuments down with them, making deep oceans actually feel deep. Of which, where are my deep warm oceans at? Sure, I know that generally an ocean is colder the deeper it goes, as the sun, which is a deadly laser, can only really heat up the surface, but it just feels missing. For the shipwreck and ruined portal, rather than all the loot being handed to you on a silver platter, an idea is to move some of its loot to the new suspicious blocks in and around the structure, similar to how the ocean's ruin got a slight update. Some loot would still be available, but if you want to get your first diamonds or a buried treasure map for easy TNT, you would need to work just a little bit harder. Now, I believe Mojang has stated that they will not remove TNT duping unless both movable tile entities and some form of renewable sand has been added. I'm not going to remove TNT duping, I'll leave that for Mojang to do, but what I will do is provide a method for renewable sand. I've never liked the common idea of husks just dropping on death, as it just makes the answer another generic mod farm. But how about every few seconds a husk is converting into a zombie because it has been in water too long, it will drop a piece of sand before dropping a few more when it finishes the transition. And I'm going to put this here since I'm not sure where else to put it. Many of the problems I have with Minecraft come from the mid and especially late game areas, and although sure, early game can go past pretty quickly, I don't see that as much of a problem. It is intentionally simple to serve as a tutorial to newer players, and once you understand the game, you can for the most part skip this part to get along with the rest of the game. However, I have heard many requests from others to try fix this problem too. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the early game progression and give their ideas on how to slow it down, but each and every one feels so convoluted and confusing that it feels like the beginning of some intentionally difficult and complex mod pack and does not pass the vibe check of vanilla in the slightest. If I were to do anything, it would be this, and like many other parts of this mod, would be able to be toggled in the mod configurations. Following how you need diamond gear to upgrade to netherite, I would make each piece of gear require the previous tier to be somewhere in the crafting recipe. So rather than only crafting a wooden and then stone pickaxe before jumping to iron for every other piece of gear, you need to go through wood and leather, then stone and chainmail, which will now be craftable, before being able to craft your first set of iron gear. Then need iron for diamond, and gold can be a branch off iron due to its special enchanting capabilities, while I also buff gold gear for it to be a little bit more usable. It would give you something to do with your first pickaxe after mining its 3 stone, and could encourage repairing your gear over just crafting a new piece. This would also make finding gear more valuable, as you would be able to skip the earlier steps, but otherwise give reason to crafting some armor before heading down into the mines. Do you remember your first night? How did you deal with it? Did you get scared and hide under the ground until morning, then pick up the loot of the dead monsters that burnt in the sunlight? Did you dig yourself into the side of a hill and make a small home of sorts before heading down underground for the rest of the night? Did you attempt to fight out in the open until the sky started to light up, or did you die over and over again? These are questions I can ask those who started playing eons ago, back when we thought hero grind was real. But if I asked these questions to those who missed their chance to get the migration cape, there's generally only one response I would get. I slept in the bed, and suddenly it was morning. Nighttime was added as a way to bring danger to your world. Upon starting a new world, you had around 8 minutes before the sun would set and the moon would rise, and along with it a vast assortment of hostile creatures that would roam the surface of the world until the sun would come again. It incentivized establishing a safe area, whether it be building a small house, digging into the side of a mountain, or even just covering a large area of torches, as getting caught outside in the dark was a recipe that usually ended with death. Once a base of operations was set up, you were encouraged to expand your territory, as the more space you controlled that monsters could not get into, the more you could safely work at night without fear of what lingered beyond your borders, as well as encouraging upgrading your gear and starting up farms so that you might eventually no longer fear the night, but that the night may fear you. This was how Minecraft worked, as the night was unavoidable, all the way up until Beta 1.3, with the introduction of the bed. The player could now skip the night and therefore skip all the dangers that came with it, and it wasn't even that expensive, at only 3 wool and planks. It was easily obtainable within the first day, nor was there any ongoing cost to use it. As there was no difference between the mobs that spawned at night and those that spawned underground, regardless of the time of day, nighttime turned from an unavoidable motivation to play the game to a punishment for not finding a sheep. This became even more apparent with 1.13's phantoms that now spawned if you hadn't slept for 3 in-game days, are a pain to deal with and don't really drop anything useful. I know you hate them, but please stop telling me to move them to the end dimension, have them spawn when you sleep too much or something similar. They were designed specifically for when you don't sleep, so I'm not changing that. But that doesn't mean that they can't be better. I made some suggestions in part 1 to make them less annoying, but that still doesn't address the core problem they have, that they exist only to be a punishment. Rather than phantoms only being a product of not sleeping, why not tie them back into the sleeping mechanic so that they both rely on each other to some extent? An earlier thought I had, seeing how Steve doesn't ever need to sleep, and how I want to add functionality to some mostly unused mechanics, was for the player to only be able to sleep when feeling sick, shown by having the nausea effect. The only way in the current game to obtain nausea is by eating a pufferfish, so although an option, it comes at all the cost of all your health. So I also wanted to make it so that you could get nausea by eating the membranes you get from the phantoms, creating a situation where you wouldn't really be able to skip the first few nights, then after that it comes down to the more phantoms you kill, the more you can sleep. You could either wait 3 nights, kill the phantom, sleep, repeat, or stay up a few nights to gather a large quantity of membranes to be able to skip as many nights as you would like. But the small cost of the membrane would no longer make it completely free. Villagers of course would still be able to sleep without nausea, for they are just built different. Although this idea is good in some aspects, some mention that this was way too restrictive on Minecraft sandbox play. I agree it is a bit restrictive, but that's not ultimately the reason why I rejected the idea, for there is another: multiplayer. The bed is unique in how it is the only mechanic in the game that affects everything everywhere all at once, not just the blocks in your immediate surroundings. You not wanting to sleep may affect someone else on the other side of the world who wants to sleep but now can't. So it goes from nighttime being a punishment to yourself for not having a bed, to a punishment for everyone because of the one person who doesn't have a bed. And on large servers, beds may as well not even exist. These changes would go on to punish everyone if one person doesn't have a bed to sleep in and a membrane to eat first. Sure, Mojang have added the Do Insomnia game rule as a band-aid solution in addition to the player's sleeping percentage to help with this issue, but honestly, I'm surprised more servers don't just have Do Daylight Cycle set to false from the get-go, seeing as most people don't like nighttime anyway. Since adding any sort of restriction to sleeping is a non-solution, which throws out any sort of idea like making the bed more expensive, if we want players to actively engage with the night in any sort of capacity beyond it being some meaningless obstruction to their gameplay, we need to add things to the night that will make the player want to engage with it. And the act of sleeping to skip the night means missing out on these bonuses. Upon the arrival of dusk on a multiplayer server, I want the common message in chat to no longer be "log off so we can skip the night please" to "hey, can we not sleep tonight? I've got this thing I want to do." The only cost to sleeping in a single player world should be a slightly longer time until waking up to give you a moment to pause and ponder, giving you a short rest to prepare yourself for the next day. A small change would be to make mobs that spawn under the night sky drop more XP. As simple as that. Want more XP early game before you build an endless XP farm? Fight at night. Want to improve the rates of your simple mob farm? Make it so the roof can come off at night to benefit from this buff. Just a little something that's always available if you so desire to take advantage of it. Next, unless underground villages are a planned future addition, can someone tell me why zombie villages can spawn underground? If we make zombie villages only spawn above ground to correlate to how villagers are only above ground, it would mean the only way to start a new village is to find the zombie villagers at night, and with the other zombie villager changes mentioned in my previous videos, would give a good reason to save the zombie villagers to receive a discount as opposed to breeding all of your villagers. While we are at it, I would suggest making Endermen far more common to be found in the desert at night. Give a valid alternative to bartering with piglins to gather pearls early game as they spawn in an environment that looks similar to their homeland, while also acknowledging and paying respects to our speedrun elders past and present, the original custodians of these pre-1.16 desert lands. As the sun sets, What lesser light rises in its place to govern the night? The moon, and with each passing day, the phase of the moon shifts, completing its cycle once every 8 days. If you didn't know this, the phase of the moon actually does already have some minor effects on certain mechanics. For the fuller the moon is, the more frequent slime spawn in swamps, the higher the local difficulty, which affects the insect zombie's ability to pick up or spawn with armor and weapons, and if it is a full moon, cats have a 50% chance to be black. I would first make the local difficulty increase the less the moon is out, so that the first night, which is a full moon, is the easiest and it increases from there, but also signifies that the less moon we see, the darker it is, and therefore the more powerful the hostile mobs that spawn. Then we could add different buffs to the other phases of the moon, so that we could let the moon decide what we will be doing that night. For example, if one phase of the moon, fishing receives a buff, and it is only then that we could fish up stuff like tridents. To help us work out the phase of the moon without needing to look at it, or if it is raining and we can't see it, let the comparator output of the inverted daylight detector be the phase of the moon, which then you can link up to a contraption that tells you what to do. Due to the recent additions of the ooze and infected potion effects, I reckon this would be the great opportunity to turn the insomnia effect into an actual effect. Rather than phantoms just spawning after 3 nights of no sleep, give the player the insomnia status effect after 3 nights of no sleep, and having this effect determines whether phantoms spawn or not. Make it an effect means you can tell when it is time to sleep before the phantoms come out to get you, or if you are like me and refuse to sleep, another option would be to drink milk to clear the effects for another 3 nights. And similar to Bad Omen, which increases with the more patrols you kill, then after beating a raid, you receive Hero of the Village of the same level. Once you receive the first level of Insomnia, it will continue to increase alongside the more phantoms you kill. This would mean more phantoms spawn, but when you do choose to sleep, it turns whatever level of Insomnia you have into a temporary buff using the completely unused health boost status effect. It would not be something you could permanently have due to how it is obtained, but would give a reason to not sleep but engage with the night as you build up a larger health boost for when you need it. To keep How Did We Get Here still possible to obtain, eating a membrane could also give you level 1 Insomnia without needing to wait 3 nights. But now you'd also need to deal with temporary blindness to compensate to make it still feel like night. Now, unless every player gets to have their own time zone, which no, the bed will never have a perfect solution when it comes to multiplayer, as I do not see a way in which you can force every player to agree on whether or not they would like to skip the night. Player 1, would you like to skip the night?
Yes.
Player 2, would you like to skip the night?
No!
Stalemate detected. Resting procedure cannot continue unless a stalemate associate is present to press the stalemate resolution button. Stalemate resolved.
I'm just making it so that in the worst case scenario where the night cannot be skipped, there are at least some upsides to it. Some suggested the idea of a middle ground where rather than black or white skip the night or don't, make it such that the more players that are sleeping, the faster the night progresses, but I don't see doing nothing in the bed for a couple of minutes to speed up the night engaging gameplay. All I will say is, don't mind that night, just drop the pick and walk away. Now that we have tackled the night, and basically every other major gameplay element that has some pretty glaring issues, there is just one left standing in our way before I can finally call Minecraft fixed. And that, my friends, are the bosses. Every story has a beginning, an introduction to the characters and the world they live in. Every story has a build-up, where the characters explore the world, build up their strength as they take on and overcome obstacles. And although Minecraft is one of those stories that doesn't have an end, it does, like many stories, have a climax. A moment in time where all the skills they have developed, tools they have crafted, knowledge they have learnt, and wisdom they have gained come together in perfect harmony to take on their largest threat yet. In Minecraft's case, you start a new world, work your way through the caves until you find diamond, or craft a bucket to skip the skep to create another portal and slay the blades with their rods. collect some pearls by either killing endermen whose greatest adversary is a boat, or trade with piglins by force feeding them gold as they stand in a hole. Follow the Eyes of Ender to a stronghold which only generates near 0/0, complete the portal, and what are you greeted with to fight before the end credits roll? A dragon! This dragon is like any other enemy in the game. You see, this dragon, Jean, does not care about your existence. For the most part, she will fly around completely ignoring you, maybe shooting a fireball if you are lucky. After a while she'll come down to perch, where she doesn't seem to mind you standing in a nest right under her while you strike her head with your weapon of mass destruction. You can watch the swarm of endermen run after her, starved for any form of attention, while your only real danger you face is gravity from either fall damage or the void below. You can generally go in with some iron gear and a water bucket and be fine. The fight boils down mostly to bow spam or hitting its head. And if you didn't bring any ranged weapons, then all you can do is stand there, menacingly, dodging the occasional fireball while you wait for her to perch, dragging on the fight, leading to a boring and anticlimactic finish to Minecraft. The Ender Dragon is probably one of the worst designed final boss fights in a game, and that's saying something since it already got an overhaul back in 1.9. It does not do the end poem you are rewarded with for killing her justice. Before we take on the Ender Dragon, let's first look at the secondary main boss of the game, the Wither. I lost. Wait a minute, I'm not supposed to lose. Let me see the script. I see. Despite it being the boss with the most useful drop, the fight is so unfairly balanced that players quickly realize that one does not simply fight a Wither, but rather look for a way to easily cheese it. There is a reason why players spawn the Wither under the exit portal to get a quick and easy kill to completely avoid the fight altogether, as it is just not fun to fight and not worth the risk of failure. Moving too fast directly above you for projectiles to be a viable weapon, while also being just out of reach for melee weapons to be of any use. All while needing to constantly be on the move as it rains down exploding wither skulls that rip through your health through the wither effect that hides how much you have, while also absolutely destroying your world, especially if it manages to kill you and starts attacking nearby animals. And that is for the Java players. I can only imagine how much more of a pain this boss is on Bedrock Edition, where the Wither is an even more broken boss, with double the health, spawning wither skeletons, a new dash attack, and on top of all of that, mobile touch controls. Due to the Wither's ability to reliably break blocks, there are many farms which rely on this mechanic, those like tree and obsidian farms, and I wouldn't want to take this away from those who use them, especially if the only other viable alternative is the unintentional bug of TNT duping, which I think you can understand why I don't want to be the only way to automatically break blocks without the player. To make the first phase more bearable, I would just make the Wither move slightly slower while also keeping a little bit more distance on the player, circling the player if it gets close enough to make it clear that this is a phase designed to be attacked with projectiles. Once you get it down to half health, I think it should have the explosion as it spawns some Wither skeletons to guard it, as it now comes down to the player's level, closing in on the player, inviting the use of melee attacks as it now has its projectile shield active. As this is a second phase to the fight, it doesn't make sense for the Wither to heal back into the point of the first phase, so let it be considered a sort of checkpoint that it can't heal past. At this point, to limit cheese, the Wither should now also be able to phase through blocks similar to the Vex, so that you cannot trap it, but must confront it face on. By making the Wither feel more fair to fight, even if the intensity stays pretty high, players will be more likely to want to engage in combat with it, and thus make the Nether Star reward that much more valuable. There will always be other ways to cheese it, but as long as it takes a bit more effort to cheese it than it does to just fight it, then it will be okay. As a large portion of the player base is still yet to fight the dragon, and some find even the current dragon to be difficult, this boss fight needs to be tied to the difficulty setting, especially as this boss is more required to beat the game than the Wither, and I don't want to make players feel like they would never have a chance to read the poem for themselves. So these changes would be more focused on the hard difficulty, and we can scale it down from there. Now that I have established that, This is my vision for how the Ender Dragon fight would go. It might be a bit extra, but hey, we are talking about a dragon here. Originally this fight was the sole purpose of this entire dimension. It's supposed to be a little bit over the top, especially for what is considered to be the final boss. Let us begin. Upon entering the End Dimension, the dragon will initially not exist, and instead there will be 4 invulnerable end crystals surrounding the exit portal, which once the player approaches will start to summon the dragon. As the fight won't begin until you are ready, it will mean the dragon will no longer immediately kick you off the obsidian platform when first entering the end. It will give you a bit of time to set up a beacon or acquire some ender pearls. It will teach you how to respawn the dragon for later, and ultimately give the start of the fight the glory it deserves. Once summoned, the dragon will fly around and shoot fireballs as usual, although these fireballs will be shot more commonly, will not get caught on the dragon itself mid-air, will have impact damage to encourage getting out of the way before it hits the ground, will take up a more volumetric space and shrink over time rather than grow. While flying, the dragon will now commonly fly directly at the player, much like she did before the overhaul rather than early post-perch, or alternatively the dragon will fly right over the player and spray its breath down from above, creating a wall of death. As the dragon goes to perch, now once all the crystals are broken, this is the time when the dragon is going to be actively protecting her nest, and thus you shouldn't be able to just stand in it as if the dragon was protecting you. If the force of the flapping wings is enough to not let projectiles hit the dragon in this phase, it should be enough to send you flying too. Rather, this phase should be dealt head-on, face-to-face, getting some headshots as you avoid the periodic breathing and get out of the way before she takes off from the perch back into the skies. And if you are too far away, she will continue to shoot fireballs at you. To give the spectating Enderman a role in this fight, the dragon could occasionally drop an Endermite from the sky, which if not killed before reaching the ground, the Enderman will swarm to, and the one that kills it gets a taste for blood and comes after you too. Despite the overall structure of the fight being largely untouched, now that the dragon actually appears to pay attention to existence and won't let itself be cheesed, this fight will begin to feel more like that, a fight. And it will keep the player engaged by having them needing to be aware of their surroundings, keep an eye on the dragon's location and be prepared for anything, always on the move, attacking when possible, and utilising everything the player has at their disposal to gain any sort of advantage. If there was ever a time to add some boss music to Minecraft to increase its intensity, now would be the time. Then for those who want to take things a step further, drink an ominous bottle before respawning the dragon to have him move faster, do more damage, gain new attacks like those from the True Ending data pack to receive more XP, more Dragon's Breath, but most importantly, a non-hard drive destroying way of getting the Elytra. This fight will not be something you want to do lightheartedly in mid-game gear, but one you want to prepare for in advance, taking your best gear in to have the best chance at taking this beast down. Because truly I tell you, this is an Avengers level threat. Now I can't talk about the dragon without bringing up intentional game design. As funny as it is to absolutely destroy this beautiful creature with bedroom furniture while saying to yourself that it just works, I don't think that the bed or respawn anchor for that matter should be a viable weapon against the dragon. As I don't want to simply make the dragon immune to explosions, and how can I remove something which is called intentional? I feel a fair compromise is to make the bed explosion do a lot less damage to non-player entities, especially as this is the only time players use this mechanic intentionally other than pranks. Sure, this might affect speedrunning more than any other chains I've mentioned in this whole series, but wouldn't you prefer to become the best at a proper fight that is more difficult to cheese as opposed to waiting for random chance for the dragon to perch, then place 4 beds? A possibility, although it might be a bit too extreme, but could fit the harder difficulties, is to add a world border around the end island until the dragon has been slain for the first time. The achievement is called Free the End, right? It will lock the extremely powerful items of shulkers, and more specifically the Elytra, until further on in the progression, being an actual reward for beating the game and not something you can easily skip to early on. There are a few other little tidbits I'm not entirely sure about, like the next generation advancement when it comes to multiplayer, but overall the dragon will finally be worthy of the end poem, a fitting end, or not end if you choose to continue playing, to the greatest game of all time. Minecraft may not be the perfect game. No game ever is, but it is a remarkably good one. Never has a game captivated me such as this, as despite 13 years having passed since taking my first look at this game, it is still a major part of my life. And with over 1 trillion views on YouTube, over 600 million downloads, and over 150 million monthly active users as Minecraft celebrates its 15th anniversary this year, I think I can say I'm not the only one. However, I have reached a point where I feel like I can no longer play single-player survival Minecraft. Sure, the magic of discovering new things about this game through blindly playing is long gone, but more importantly, I feel my knowledge of this game is a curse that is holding me back, gatekeeping the potential fun I could be having rather than my knowledge being used to enhance my gameplay. Before I even press Create New World, I can already see most of my potential playthrough flash before my eyes. I already know how I'm going to start the world, what paths of progression to choose, and what sort of activities I should avoid. I know how I am going to exploit villages and build an ender to a speedrun max level gear, fly everywhere with the elytra without needing any other form of transport, and cheese the wither under bedrock for easy beacons. Some will say, if you don't like it, don't do it, or if you think it's too OP, don't use it. And to that I say, I have. I've done playthroughs without villages, I've done them without the elytra, without farms and many other kinds of cheese. And sure, there was a short-term enjoyment for doing things differently, but continuously needing to resist the temptation of doing things the more efficient route whenever the opportunity presents itself is mentally exhausting and eventually kills a lot of the fun I would have if I didn't know there was a better way. On the more extreme end, how many of you, if even once, have abused relog invincibility, temporary peaceful mode, or even straight up open to LAN with cheats enabled to get out of a tough situation that you didn't want to be in? All it does is remind me of how much the game is suffering and in need of repair. Not just in terms of adding new content to appease our short-term desires of adventure, but a fundamental pulling apart of some of Minecraft's oldest mechanics and tuning them to fit Minecraft's overarching philosophies before putting it all back together again. I love the idea of more optional content like Mojang has been doing in the last few updates, but while it continues to build on a correct foundation, something will always feel off about them. The trial chambers are fun, but imagine how much more they could have been if the underlying combat, inventory, enchanting, and other core systems were designed in a way that was able to accommodate features such as this. It was this feeling that drew me to Redstone all those years ago, where there is always another contraption to design which requires new challenges to overcome. The difficulty of the build I wanted to do was always slightly beyond what I thought I could do, which continually pushed me to learn new Redstone mechanics, and thus my knowledge of Redstone was not a hindrance, but a key to a locked door of so many opportunities. I was never really interested in creating farms that would be useful to survival or being a drop in the ocean when it comes to the Piston Door community. I just made whatever I wanted to, whether it be a unique revolving door, an almost picture-perfect 9-cat, an over-engineered hidden base, or the likes of a fully functioning chessboard. The logic behind Redstone struck a chord within me as it led me to learn how to program, use code to help me design a real-time bad apple with Redstone, and eventually get a bachelor in software engineering majoring in game programming. Minecraft helped me get into programming. So now it is my turn to return the favor, come full circle, and use that programming knowledge to help Minecraft be the best it can be. I've already had a hand in changing the code of Minecraft once before. What's stopping me from doing it again for a more important reason? So Mojang, if you are watching this and are willing to give someone their dream job, I will always be happy to receive an email from you. Nowadays, the biggest thing that keeps bringing me back to this game is the community. The stories we create and the memories we share over whatever server we found ourselves to be a part of. Even just talking about the game and the future of Minecraft in Discords, or using the game as a way to bond between friends. It is these human-to-human interactions that make this sandbox platform of a game worth more than the sum of its parts. It's what made the game last longer than not just original 6-month plan. It is what made Minecraft as big as it is today, and it is what will make Minecraft last long into the distant future. And in that regard, maybe it is the perfect game. Maybe the true survival experience was the friends we made along the way. This may be the finale to this trilogy, but we ain't done yet. With the mod underway, we are slowly but surely implementing all the ideas we can within these videos, which you eventually get to play for yourself for the low price of free. And hey, I might even become a Let's Play YouTuber using this mod, but no promises on that front. If you have any modding experience and would like to help, I'm always open to more people on the project. The more of us working on different parts of the mod, the faster we can get it done. I see it as a win-win situation. Now, there are other minor ideas I haven't mentioned in these videos I also want to add to this mod. Ideas that give fitting uses to rather obsolete items, tying up some loose ends, and overall a little polish to make the game feel a little bit more of a complete experience. And since the release of my other 2 videos, it has been amazing to see some of the issues I've talked about being fixed in the latest snapshots, and I'm sure there will be many more fixes on their way. Just don't by fixing some parts of the game, go around break other parts of the game. So once the first full version of the mod is ready for release, there will be another video just going over all the changes contained in the mod, and it won't be complete without a cohesive explanation of the new and improved enchanting system, as there are many details I have not fully explained in these videos. Partly because I hadn't figured out all the details when I made the videos, but it's all figured out now, and it is more beautiful than I could have ever imagined when I started this project. So if you want news of when that would happen, and haven't already done so after watching 3 hours of my content, I guess you should subscribe? Bonus points if you join the Discord too. And then on this fateful day, and only by the wisdom that comes through knowing Jesus Christ as King, will I finally be able to say, and that's how I fixed survival Minecraft. Let's go to a place where everything is made of blocks, with the only limit is your imagination. Let's go wherever you want to go, climb the tallest mountains, and venture down to the darkest caves. Build anything you want, day or night, rain or shine, because this is the most significant sandbox you'll ever set foot in. Build a majestic castle, invent a new machine, or take a ride on a roller coaster. Play with friends, build your own little community, protect yourself with the strongest armor you can craft, and fight off the dangers of the night. No one can tell you what you can or cannot do. With no rules to follow, this adventure, it's up to you.